Good morning, everyone. We're still waiting for people to join, so in just a few minutes, we will begin our competition. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rosita Wooster. I will be the moderator for this session. I am Dean of the Graduate School at Portland State University and also serve as President-elect of WAGS this year. Our competition is sponsored by ProQuest, and I want to acknowledge that we're grateful for their support. And I'd like to move on to just a few details about the 3MT competition. As you know, this competition was started at the University of Queensland in 2008 and then spread to over 85 countries and close to 900 universities today. Next slide, please. The 3-minute thesis competition has very specific rules. We have competitors only using one static slide. So there's no animation, no other props. It is spoken and not danced or sang. The scoring criteria and the judging criteria you could review on our WAGS 3MT website. I'd like to also introduce to you our judges for today's session. First, we have Krista Chronister, who is Vice Provost of Graduate Studies at the University of Oregon. We have Mary Beth Watwood, who is Dean of the Graduate College, Northern Arizona University. And we have Mark Woods, Associate Dean of the Graduate School at Portland State University. We're very grateful for their assistance today and appreciate their support. Our technical support is Pei Zhang and Kathy Knight, who couldn't join us today. We have instead Mary Brayton. We have in this format no questions from the audience, so you will not see the chat or Q&A enabled. And also, please remember to mute yourselves should you not already be muted to help with our streaming quality. With this, I'd like to proceed to our first contestant. Her name is Mel Anderson. She is from the English graduate program at Idaho State University. Her advisor is Dr. Alan Johnson, and her presentation title is Trauma Unheard, the Social Disenfranchisement of Grief. Mel, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You may begin when the clock reaches the 3-minute mark.
Thank you. I do not see a clock.
It should appear shortly. Hang in there.
Okay. My father is serving 2 life sentences for 11 counts of child abuse, including rape and torture, that culminated in my brother's murder. Critical trauma theory and literature posits that for survivors like me, trauma is both unremembered and unspoken. I disagree, because I remember every moment and I can talk about it, and I'm not alone. After the Holocaust, psychologist David Boder recorded the oral testimony of death camp survivors. Survivors who wanted to speak were plentiful, but no one would publish Boder's research until nearly 40 years after his death, because, quote, no one wants to hear atrocity. Survivors spoke, they were not heard. The very existence of Holocaust memoir, which requires both memory and voice to write, severely undercuts the belief that memory and voice do not survive trauma. My research, which is supported by tens of thousands of Holocaust narratives, proposes a new theoretical framework in which we shift the conversation away from survivor deficiency and towards the silence imposed by listener discomfort. The problem with trauma communication is not expressive, but receptive. Truly, no one wants to hear atrocity. Beyond the therapy circle and happy ending tropes, it's never the time or the place. And some of us, like my brother, don't get happy endings. It's never the time or the place to speak the very real traumas that exist in the shadow of racism, sexism, homophobia, bereavement, rape, suicide, war, or the myriad other traumas humans face every day. This is evident when we ban books that are honest about the suffering of the Holocaust, or even when we forbid teaching US history because it might, in the words of one new law, cause discomfort. Auschwitz survivor Primo Levi described the compulsion to speak after trauma, to tell our stories to the rest, to teach. But when we teach that survivors are incapable of speech, we remove the imperative to listen, and we lose the opportunity to learn from those experiences that, while painful, are also valuable. I want the circumstances that cost my brother his life and made my survival necessary to be fixed. That cannot happen while we persist in the ableist notion that survivors are too broken to participate in the conversation. We can speak. My research invites others to learn to listen, even and especially when it's uncomfortable.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Judges, please submit your scores. Mel, here we go. I'm on video now. Thank you for this presentation. Wow, how timely. I think we are all hearing every day in the news reasons why your presentation is so timely. How did you get into this line of research?
Oh goodness, because my parents are horrible people, and basically, no. Well, I've always loved writing, and I've always loved reading in English. So it was just a place that I kind of went to for refuge.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I did it because it was such a love of mine. And then I read this my first semester, that trauma is unspoken, and I was like, well, that's false.
Right. This is a really interesting. So when I, when you're in an English program, it could be anything, right? I mean, any topic, and it's no surprise that it's informed by your personal experience. What do you like to do on a Saturday for fun?
Oh, goodness. Does fun exist?
Does fun exist, right?
Exist. Well, I like spending time with my kids. I enjoy doing laundry, which is weird.
Yeah.
Crochet. I'm starting to sound like a crazy cat lady, but I'm not. Maybe I am actually.
No,
That I might be a crazy
that's
cat
fine.
lady.
We have spent quite a bit of time here at the conference actually talking about the work-life balance. So
Oh,
that's partly why I'm posing this question, because clearly your research is quite intense and, emotional. And so
it's actually the relaxing thing in my life right now.
wonderful.
So
Okay. Let's see. Are we ready for our next contestant? Great. Our next presenter is Rebecca Call. She is from the Religious Studies Critical Comparative Scripture program in Claremont Graduate University. Her advisors are Tammy Schneider and Marcus Weekly, and her presentation title, I will probably massacre this one, is Ezer Knado, Neither Helpful Nor Sufficient. Rebecca, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. You may begin when the clock reaches the 3-minute mark.
There's a joke that goes like this. If a man hits a woman with his car, whose fault is it? The man's, because he shouldn't have been driving in the kitchen. This is an example of a kitchen joke, which centers around the idea that a woman's place is only in the home, not having public influence or authority. Such jokes reflect a cultural ideology of gender roles that developed from traditional interpretations of the Bible. In the Bible, in Genesis, it says that God created a single human. And then God says, in the King James Version, it is not good for the man to be alone. Let us make a help meet for him. Help meet, defining woman. The meet of help meet meant sufficient in early modern English. Help meet or help sufficient is translated from the Hebrew ezer kenegdo, a phrase used for millennia as a touchstone for interpreting gender roles. Prevailing interpretations historically have viewed women as being innately evil or lesser, thereby justifying male domination. It's only been roughly within the last century that scholars have seriously considered alternate interpretations. But even with new interpretations, we find a serious problem. Scholars are paying more attention to tradition than they are to the actual words of the text. To date, no scholar has conducted a rigorous linguistic study of the phrase to create an accurate base for interpretation. Thus, these translations and interpretations are neither helpful nor sufficient. That is what my dissertation aims to remedy. I have examined every occurrence of both roots through the Hebrew Bible and have identified contextual themes connected to these words, which I have then applied to the Genesis account to better understand the nuances of ezer kenegdo. What I'm finding is that this has nothing to do with whether one gender should be subordinate or in which sphere women should belong. Rather, it touches at the heart of interpersonal relationships, why we become vulnerable, when we become defensive, how conflict has the potential to be constructive rather than destructive. In the text, when this type of help is present, everything flourishes. When this type of help is absent, everything fails. In short, the actual conversation in the Hebrew Bible does not even fit within our cultural ideology of gender roles. Rather, it centers on building blocks of healthy relationships where both parties are fully powerful and influential with no need to compete for authority. This fuller understanding of ezer kenegdo supports a healthier conversation about gender roles. And in this way, it is both helpful and sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. This was very interesting. And how did you get drawn into this line of research?
I became really interested in biblical studies actually as an undergraduate. I'd grown up in a religious household and took a class in Old Testament and had expected it to be lots of history and names and dates. But instead, we looked at the ancient Near Eastern context and temple symbolism and rhetorical devices in Hebrew poetry. And all of a sudden, I saw this very complex text that the way that it had often been interpreted was not really what was happening in the text itself. And so I kind of became, well, not kind of, I became very passionate about looking at what is the text actually saying that's not being reflected in later interpretation.
That's very interesting. Did you have to read stuff in the original Hebrew?
Yes, I have a master's degree in Hebrew Bible, so I've done
Okay.
a lot of both biblical and modern Hebrew.
And translation?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's not an easy skill. I'm not a native speaker to begin with, so I do appreciate the way that you have to use metaphors from another language that are different but convey the same meaning and so forth. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation. Let's see, are judges ready with their scores? Yes, thank you. Our next presenter is Kishore Chittimali from the Pharmaceutical Sciences program at North Dakota State University. His mentor is Yagna Jarajapu, and his presentation title is Restructuring Gut Microbiome for Healthy Aging. Kishore, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
You may begin when the clock reaches 3-minute mark.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kishore from North Dakota State University, and my research is on gut microbiome. We are taught in our childhood that all microbes are bad. They cause some illness to us. But it's not so true, because there are many friendly microbes which protect us. And we acquire the right combination of these microbes right at birth. They reside in the gut and grow in colonies. We have colonies of virus, fungi, predominantly bacteria, living in the gut and collectively called as gut microbiome. These trillions of bacteria are always at war, trying to conquer gut as their habitat. In young individual, army of good bacteria outnumbers the army of bad bacteria, by which it maintains a protective environment in the gut. It acts as a barrier for foreign substances. As there are no intruders, bone marrow will not initiate an inflammation, and all the vital organs like brain, heart, and capillaries will function healthily. However, with the aging, bad bacteria now outnumbers the good bacteria. Now, these bad pathogenic bacteria secrete small particles called as metabolites. These metabolites attack the gut wall and create leaky pores in gut wall, which we call leaky gut. Through this leaky gut, small particles enter into the circulation and trigger bone marrow to release more number of inflammatory cells. Now it's like a sea of inflammation in which all vital organs are embedded, resulting in deadly diseases like Alzheimer's, atherosclerosis, heart attack, stroke, and causing mortalities. Sad part is that there is no approved therapy to treat aging microbiome. So my research is to find the lead molecule which can reverse the aging microbiome. I've carried out experiments and I found that, yes, there is abnormality in gut microbiome of aging mice. Then I've treated the aging mice with a small molecule called as angiotensin 1-7. And guess what? This therapy has reversed the aging microbiome to healthy microbiome. This therapy supported the good bacteria to generate detoxifying agents, which has sealed these leaky pores, which has also instructed the bone marrow to reduce the number of inflammatory cells, by which it has pacified the sea of inflammation, and all the vital organs resume their healthy functions, resulting in healthy aging. This result suggests that angiotensin 1-7 is a promising therapy to treat aging microbiome. And if therapies like this get approved, we are one step closer to the eternal youth. But till then, listen to your gut. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kishore. I love hearing research like this because it gives me some hope that there is a future for a longer life. Judges, please submit your scores.
Yes.
Kishore, share with us what your plans are for after you finish your degree.
I'll be joining pharmaceutical industry and looking forward for getting new drugs or new formulations so that we can have a better place to live in.
Mm-hmm. And do you already have an idea of, where you want to go in terms of the pharmaceutical industry?
As of now, no.
Okay.
I have a previous experience with the Pfizer. I'm not sure. I left that and I came here, so whether they will take me back or not, I don't know that. But yes, I'll be approaching some of the pharmaceutical companies who are working on the biotechnological products. As the proteins and the peptides, all these biotechnological products are the futures for the drug research. So I want to be in that particular portfolio.
That's excellent. Well, we are excited to see what you produce. No pun intended.
Sure.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judges, are we ready with our scores? Great. So our next presenter is Autumn Caro. She's from the Biology Graduate Program at California State University, Bakersfield. Her mentor is Dr. Anar Doti, and her presentation title is The Effects of Fire on Bat Activity in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. Autumn, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
You may begin when the clock reaches the 3-minute mark.
Okay. Hunters of the night, they awake as the sun goes down and fly through the darkness in search of prey. No, we're not talking about vampires. We're talking about bats. Bats comprise 1/5 of all mammal species, yet are often misunderstood by the public. Bats are ecosystem indicators, meaning that their presence or absence implies the conditions of their habitat. Importantly, we can use bats as a proxy for determining the recovery of habitats following natural disasters like fire. While wildfires are a natural part of California's landscape, the fire season in California and across the West is starting earlier and ending later each year, with climate change considered to be the key driver of this trend. The purpose of my study is to understand how bats respond to fire-affected habitats. Specifically, the aim of this project is to determine, 1, how changes to density of vegetation from fire affects the activity patterns of forest-dwelling bats, and 2, how the number of bat species in a habitat changes over time due to the degree of fire severity. To evaluate the effects of burn severity on bats, we conducted acoustic surveys this summer within the SQF complex that burned in Sequoia National Forest and adjacent areas in August 2020. Acoustic monitoring is a non-invasive method that allows us to record echolocation calls, which can be used to identify different bat species by their unique echolocation signatures. Sonobat software allows us to record, process, and analyze acoustic data from bat echolocation calls. And on the top of my slide, I have a call from a Yuma myotis bat. 17 of the 23 bat species in California use Sierra Nevada habitats. 11 of the 17 expected in Sierra Nevada parks have special status designated by federal, state, or other organizations. My study is being conducted in Sequoia National Park, which has seen a loss in bats adapted to forests cluttered with vegetation, and a gain of bats adapted to more open forest, meaning that fire may be beneficial to some while also being detrimental to others. With the predicted increases in number and magnitude of high severity fires, we expect to see an increase in foraging opportunities for open and edge adapted bats, such as the Mexican free-tailed or silverhead bat, although increases in fire severity would reduce foraging opportunities for clutter-adapted species, such as the long-eared or California myotis. Our preliminary findings correlate with these predictions. With a high abundance of open adapted Mexican free-tailed bats in high severity burn sites, and abundance of California myotis bats in the more cluttered non-burn site. Fire influences animals through direct mortality and indirectly through habitat alteration. This information is crucial in understanding how bats are adapting to fires, encouraging appropriate habitat management and conservation efforts of an order already facing numerous threats. Thank you for your time.
Autumn, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your research. Unfortunately, you have exceeded the allotted time. And as you know, this is one of the rules of the competition. But I would like to thank you for joining us. This is amazing research. I appreciate your presentation and best luck with finishing your studies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for our next presentation? Our next contestant is Grant Eli. He is from the nursing PhD program at Washington State University. His mentors are Gwen Halas and Dr. Rochelle Shelley Fritz. His presentation title is Work Readiness Before Graduation. Grant, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You may begin when the clock reaches the 3-minute.
This picture represents the struggles I had as a new nurse and the challenges I've seen in others as I've served in various leadership roles in healthcare. My concern for new nurses motivated me to leave my clinic position and work on a solution to ensure students are prepared emotionally, physically, and mentally to care for patients before they graduate. A 5-year study of 5,000 newly graduated nursing students showed that 77% could not demonstrate entry-level competency and basic readiness to care for patients. Since COVID began, that number has jumped to 91%. The American Association of Colleges of Nursing concluded that nursing programs need new thinking and approaches to prepare students to be work ready by graduation. Without this type of preparation, new nurses experience high levels of stress, anxiety, and many burnout. In fact, between 33 and 49% of new nurses quit their job by their second year, significantly affecting patient care access and quality and increasing the burden for the nurses who remain behind. To become a registered nurse, a person needs to graduate from a nursing school and pass the National Nurse Certification Exam. However, decades of research show that these do not guarantee that someone has the skills and competencies to be a nurse. We must change our approach to ensure that all graduating students are ready to care for their patients. The first step towards student work readiness is determining what nurses must know and do. By collaborating with hospitals and clinics, we can gather the diagnoses, medications, labs, procedures, and nursing skills required for each nurse specialty. I personally met with hospital nurse executives in 2 states. They're excited and support this research. This collaboration will allow us to create an innovative nursing curriculum based on actual clinical data and update it regularly with the latest changes like COVID. With a clear focus on what students need to know and do, nursing schools can implement self-paced learning, education reflecting real life, student-to-student mentoring, and mastery to ensure graduates are ready to care for their patients. As a result of these changes, we expect that nurse retention and patient care will significantly improve as new well-trained nurses reinforce healthcare's front lines. We also expect more individuals to apply to nursing schools that prioritize clinical readiness by graduation. We can provide nursing students with the preparation they need to become work ready before graduating. They need our help, and sooner or later, we will need theirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Judges, please submit your scores. Grant, this is exciting. I think that we, as you said, sooner or later will all need their help. And the more prepared they are, the better. What do you see for yourself once you're done with your studies?
I'm looking for organizations that will support this research and to carry it to fruition. The nursing problem crisis is not going away. And so we really need organizations to back this, realize that there's an issue and kind of see the big picture, that it's not just here in the US, but globally there's a nursing shortage, and we all need good, well-prepared nurses to fix the issue.
Well, I wish you all the success you can have, because we do indeed need strong and well-prepared people to help out with an increasingly aging population. Thank you very much for your presentation. Are we ready for our next contestant? Our next presenter is Logan Epson from the Chemistry Graduate Program at University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. The mentor is Dr. Amanda Morgenstern, and the presentation title is Climbing the Chemical Mountain, Using Electric Fields as Catalysts. Logan, are you ready? You may begin.
I am.
Great. You may begin when the clock reads.
A chemical reaction is like climbing over a mountain. Making the change from one form to another requires energy, and a reaction can only happen when it has enough energy. In order to fully climb over a mountain, you need to have enough energy to reach the peak, and only then can you continue on. And once you're on the other side, you're metaphorically like a different person, similar to how the product of a reaction is distinctly different from when it started. One big part of chemistry is figuring out how the mountain is climbed, but another is how to make the mountain easier to climb. Adding a catalyst is one way of making the mountain easier to climb. A catalyst speeds a reaction up. It makes the mountain smaller. Less energy is needed to climb, and less time is needed to reach the peak. Catalysts are extremely useful chemical tools, but they can also be pretty expensive and potentially hazardous to the environment. Finding greener and more efficient alternatives is crucial. Moving past the mountain analogy now, an actual chemical reaction often involves bonds breaking and forming. Two atoms bond together primarily because of the attraction between their charges. And when a bond is broken, the shared electron pair between those atoms is transferred. How might a reaction change if some outside electric charge was applied to the reaction? An electric field describes a directed distribution of charge, and previous work has shown how an electric field can help guide electron transfer, strengthen or weaken certain bonds. Less energy is then needed to break or form those bonds, and therefore an electric field can act as a possible catalyst for a reaction. I investigate this idea computationally. I run simulations on computers for the reaction of hydrogen cyanide, or HCN to CNH. I look at the energy, the geometry, and most importantly, the charge distribution to figure out what direction and what position of electric field will lower the amount of energy needed for this reaction to happen. How can I make that mountain smaller? And if I can figure that out, can I predict the same effect on other reactions? One of the benefits of computational chemistry is the ability to test ideas like this without having to use really complicated and expensive lab techniques and equipment. I want to establish electric fields as a new alternative type of catalyst that people should be looking into. My goal isn't to destroy mountains, but to make them a little easier to climb and save energy, which I'm sure you can understand is a good thing if you also love to hike. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan. Judges, please submit your scores. Logan, how did you get interested in this field?
I've always been pretty interested in research, and I was always thinking that I would end up in an actual wet lab where I actually use chemicals but I saw a presentation about computational chemistry, and I thought it was so fascinating that I could predict the results of an experiment without actually having to perform it, just using quantum chemistry and calculations. I just found it so fascinating.
You must have found yourself also fortunate during the pandemic that you don't have to be in the lab.
Very much. I actually started my research with my advisor in that spring of 2020.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
And so you essentially were doing all of your experiments at home on a computer.
Exactly, yes.
That's well, that's fortunate, but it's also impressive that you combine the computational part with the chemistry part. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And are we ready for our next presenter? Wonderful. Our next presenter is Robbie Fadil. He's from the Biomedical Engineering Graduate Program at the University of North Dakota. His advisor is Kohar Tavakolian, and his presentation title is Preventing Falls in Parkinson's Disease. Robbie, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
You may begin when the clock reaches the 3-minute mark.
We in North Dakota have a lot to be proud of. We are #1 in the country for honey production, and we are #2 in the nation for oil production. But unfortunately, we are the 3rd in the country for incidence of Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is a brain disorder that affects body movements, and symptoms include tremors, slow movement, muscle weakness, and lack of balance and coordination, all of which contribute to falls in Parkinson's disease. The consequences of fall in Parkinson's disease are significant and far-reaching, often resulting in injury and fear of falling when performing day-to-day activities, as well as financial hardship. The risk of falling in people with Parkinson's disease is 3 times higher than in people without the disease. To prevent falls, doctors will measure the way Parkinson's patients stand, walk, and maintain their balance, so specific weaknesses could be addressed with specific exercises and medication. However, the current equipment for measuring how patients stand, walk, and maintain their balance are large and expensive, making it challenging for doctors to have it at their clinics and nearly impossible for patients to have it at home. In my research, I am focused on developing a better way to predict and prevent falls in Parkinson's disease. The solution is to use a portable, inexpensive bathroom scale. Well, not just any bathroom scale, but an advanced one. The patient will stand on the scale and it will measure their heart rhythm, respiration, the strength of their leg muscles, and their balance. Then it will tell them if the risk of falling today is high or low. The scale will also alert the patient's caregiver or call 911 in case of an emergency. For over a year, I have been going to Stanford Clinic in Fargo to record data from Parkinson's patients. From the 45 patients I recorded data from, I found that preventing falls not only depends on the way Parkinson's patients stand, walk, and maintain their balance, but also their heart rhythm, respiration, blood pressure, leg muscle activity, brain-heart communication, and so many other factors. I believe very soon this technology will alleviate some stress on caregivers by assisting doctors in fall prevention. This technology will also provide a sense of independence for people with Parkinson's disease, especially the ones in remote areas who don't have access to a convenient healthcare. With further research, our device could also be used to prevent falls in healthy elderly people and those who may suffer from certain neurological disorders. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robbie. This concludes our presenters for today. Judges, please submit your scores and complete your voting process. Robbie, this is exciting. Again, I'm excited when I hear these advances in research on various diseases, but what do you see for yourself when you graduate?
I really love research and I also love teaching. So
Mhm.
I would stay in academia, and my goal is to get a postdoc.
Mm.
Currently, we are trying to kind of prevent falls in people with Parkinson's disease, but also we're trying to see if exercise would improve some of the symptoms of the disease. So we're writing actually STTR grant with a collaboration with a company in California that designs specific exercise equipment. And hopefully, if we can get that grant, we're gonna do some research and look at different kind of exercises, exercise intensity based on disease stage and progression and all of that. So hopefully we can improve the symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you very much again. And I'd like to invite all our contestants to unmute themselves and come on a screen to have a brief conversation here about how you prepared for the 3MT competition. And what I specifically was thinking about is, did you find, if you would like to share with us, did you find that in your preparation for this competition, you understood your research better? You can jump in whenever you feel ready to share.
I absolutely felt like it helped me understand my research better. I went through a lot of different drafts. I ended up, my first document that I wrote down would have taken me much longer than 3 minutes to present.
Mm.
And especially as I started presenting it to friends, to, just practice presenting, so many people would say, well, it was interesting in this part, I didn't understand anything. I was lost, and I honestly felt kind of bored. And so it helped me refine to make sure that every single sentence, hopefully, was exactly what I wanted to say and comprehensible and applicable. And so it's been very helpful as I've gone to conferences or when people are saying, so what are you doing in your research? I've discovered I can turn this into a 45-second presentation or a 3-minute or a 5-minute, depending on what people want. And really preparing for this is what helped me refine my thoughts to the point that I could do that.
I see other heads nodding. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Go
help-
ahead.
I think it helped me on the outline also, in that I knew, I guess in the thesis itself, I knew what I wanted to cover in what order because of the way that I covered it in the 3-minute thesis.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact being able to, get a draft that can be understandable for the general public, it's very important. And that also helped me whenever I present poster conferences, and especially last time when I presented a poster, people would come to me and I would ask them, are you familiar with this? What's your field? And based on that, I kind of gave a different speech to different people. And that was also the fruit of the long preparation for 3MT. So I had many ideas in my mind, different drafts. And so, yeah, that was very helpful.
That's wonderful. Well, I think we have our judges have been able to submit their scores. So just checking here. And at this point, I would like to announce the winners of our preliminary round. Our first winner is Robbie Fadil. Robbie, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
And our second winner is Kishore Chitimili.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. But I wanted to say you are all winners. By just being here, you have won your university's 3-minute competitions, and I can see why. You are all excellent, and I really, really appreciate you joining us to present. So with this, I would like to end this preliminary competition. Thank you for your time. Best wishes for successful completion of your studies. And for the 2 winners, we will see you in the final 3MT in about 3 hours. Thank you everyone again for joining us. Thanks to the audience. Thanks to our support and our judges. We really appreciate all you do for this competition. Goodbye.
Thank you.